Do you take yourself a little bit too seriously? I know how it is. Homeschooling is tough. And some of those days you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Well, I'm here to tell you that we need to add a little bit of humor, and I found just the person to teach us that. Susie Lloyd is my next guest on the Catholic Homeschool Podcast. Welcome to the Catholic Homeschool Podcast, and I am your host, Paola. I am so happy to have you join me today. I get to have a nice, cozy fireside chat, and if you'll notice, there is no fire, and I mention that because today it's all about humor. Yes, humor, one of those gifts from God, and I am pleased as anything to be able to introduce you all, and many of you already know her, Susie Lloyd. I'm going to begin with her bio so we can get that out of the way super quick. So Susie Lloyd is a Catholic homeschooler from Pennsylvania with 27 years of homeschooling experience and still homeschooling. She is married with 7 children and 12 grandchildren so far. Yay, love that. She helps new and struggling homeschoolers through personal consulting services. Such a blessing to those families, I am sure. And homeschoolers also enjoy her award-winning humor books, her articles, her practical conference talks. So without further ado, welcome, Susie. How are you today?
Hey, Paula, great to see you.
It's good.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for saying yes. So when we first talked about this, I've known Susie years ago from homeschooling because she really was one of those people I had heard at conferences when I was homeschooling. But more importantly, I really think it was this sense of lighten up, Paola. You know what I mean? Like there are other people out there homeschooling. It isn't all doom and hardness. There are mothers out there who are struggling. And Susie has this gift of articulating that in such a beautiful way. I wanted to share that with our audience, Susie. So how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, your little homeschool journey to bring us up to date, what you're doing today, and then we'll dive into humor.
The thing about me is, I think I started writing the books at a time when I was shut in days at a time. I think we had one car and it was somewhere else, like with my husband at work, and the kids were little, and, come winter, you never go anywhere. And so, you start to, you get like, this really doesn't seem very ideal, and plus, God, nobody realizes this, but growing up, I was definitely not a genius, and I was a C student. I'm just going to put it out there. And it's like, what have I signed up for? I'm in over my head. You got to find the funny in that. And it is funny, it is funny that God puts you in a certain place and says, no, you're going to do this. And how I'm going to prove that it's not about human pride is I'm going to pick you.
Absolutely. I do, 2 things. I think, we were talking earlier today just about humor and in terms of, for all of us, we need to tap into this part of us that is our saving grace, and like you said, God picked you, he called you. So what would you say, and we're going to dive into that advice, but tell me a little bit about like that journey through the years. So if people don't know, show up the books. I'm going to have you show Susie has written 3 books, and even the titles alone are funny. So go ahead. Yeah.
This coming up backwards?
No, it's showing up perfect. Go ahead.
This is the one that won a Catholic Press Award, and it's the first one that people usually know this one. Please don't drink the holy water. I'll put this one back. We only had 5 kids at the time, and now we have 7. But this is my favorite one, and it's called Bless Me, Father, for I Have Kids. So these are just funny stories. Like, I don't know if anybody reads Irma Bombeck anymore, or Dave Barry. I was inspired by them as a writer to tell my story, but it's not my story only. And that's why the books are popular. It's the universal experience of being home and committing yourself. And they're cheerful, it's not just about like the things that go wrong. It's about the things that go wrong. And then maybe you lose the battle, but you win the war,
So one of those things that we could really all relate to is rosary time, like paint for us. Exactly. What was that like for your family?
Well, that's in the first book. And that's one of the favorite chapters because, you have these dreams of all of this piety that you're going to have in your family. And then when you kneel down to really do it, it just comes unraveled, and everybody's distracted, and the baby is like doing all this clowning around, and everybody's laughing. And, I had a lady, and the funny thing is, you write this stuff and, you get the odd person who takes it seriously. I had a lady offer to send me some tapes to get the kids to pay attention better. I mean, this is how old I am. I'm calling them tapes, but it was tapes.
Yes.
And, but but even that's funny too.
It is funny. It is funny. Thank you for saying that because, I think that as I was going through the years, Susie, I don't know about you, but I took myself way too seriously in the beginning. That could have easily be turned into like really total confidence drain. Somebody's like, oh gosh, I really messed up. I don't know how to do rosary with my kids.
Well, I still take myself too seriously. And no, I mean, because I am tired. I've been doing it 27 years. And, there are days when I just wish everybody would just obey me perfectly. And, and things, you get down into a slump feeling like, everybody takes me for granted. But that's just fatigue. That's not necessarily indicative of your real way of handling things. It's just fatigue. And so what I do is I always plan some way out, like it's okay. So you go to your happy place and you say, what is it that's the opposite of this? And for me, it's always the same thing. Silly fun. Mm-hmm. I once invited our associate pastor over when I was first getting to know him. I said, do you want to come over on Friday night for some silly fun? He goes, I love silly fun. So silly fun is stuff like Pictionary. It's stuff like, goofy parlor games where everybody's screaming like spoons. And some of our best memories are like playing these silly games with our family, or our friends, or just, you need to sort of let the wind come in and whoosh all that serious hard work out just to release it all, Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, talk about the things that, you use silly fun in inviting your pastor. It is, our homeschool life is kind of extends to more than just our day-to-day homeschool, doesn't it? It's kind of, yeah. And I think in many ways we kind of like have this, label on us that when God blesses you with multiple children and you decide to take this heroic path of homeschooling, I don't know about you, but I would get these remarks like, oh, you must be a saint. You must be able to do all this. And you're like, you need to come to my house and see how unlike.
Well, sometimes I feel like, I'm racking up purgatory time. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be. It's supposed to be the opposite. And you should see my desk right now. Like, so I talk about what things are supposedly look like. You must be so organized. You must be so brilliant. You must be so whatever. It's like, I should flip the camera around and let you see what's behind this computer. So I'm like, okay, I got to be on this podcast. So let me move everything out of the picture. It's like, how do I hide the fact that this is my bedroom and my office is in my room? It's like, you got to be aware that there's a saying, I live by this. It's don't judge the inside of your life by the outside of someone else's.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That again, it's like if you only could see what I'm surrounded by, like this package that I opened yesterday is here. And
so say it again. Yeah, socks.
There's batteries over here, like in front of me. Yeah. This is how it really is. And I think you have to kind of just be glad of it, and okay with it and okay for people to know it.
And recently I've been just pondering again for myself, even just at this stage where, theoretically my house should be clean because all my kids are basically launched out of the house, still far from it. Now I'm left with all of their leftovers from dorm life and my parents downsizing and it's still not neat, but it's still this ability for us to really be able to pause and reflect on what's really important. And I think that's having a sense of humor and having silly fun is part of that. Isn't that a gift from God? I mean, what does God say about humor?
I think you have to plan for the things that you need, and not just expect things to change, And so one thing that always made me happy too was I've always written things down. I've always been a writer. Ever since I was a little kid, I was into it. I was thinking about writing, and I had baby books for my kids. And I still have, the kids enjoy them so much. They'll flop down and read all their old stories, because they're so funny. And some of them ended up in my books, but some of them didn't. But it's fun to go back and revisit all those wonderful moments, and even now I have 2 kids left at home and they're both teenagers. So they're kind of past the goofy age when they're little. Well, actually my son's still pretty goofy. He's so goofy. I was going to say, he's still goofy. I've got they'll take home videos of each other and he's like, I'm like, he's still, makes me laugh and reminds me of when all the kids were little being silly, and now there's all these grandchildren and my daughter, Katie, she sends me and she sends everybody on the family thread, all the silly things her kids are doing. And especially the oldest one who's 8. And it's going right back there, to those days when we were living that way ourselves. And I always said, even then, I knew it was the golden years. I wasn't sorry about it at all. Being with the little ones, I said, these are the golden years. Greg and I knew it from back then, and we appreciated it.
That is awesome. I remember my mom saying that to me too. She's like, Paola, you really need to savor these moments because I know that in the busyness of it, and then I think it's layered on it in the fact that, again, we feel this extra responsibility because we're homeschooling, God forbid that we do it wrong. We're going to ruin our kids.
Yeah.
There's this overlying feeling of that. So, but she would always pause and just say, savor the moments. And
well, you're going to do it wrong. And you're going to do it wrong. I think people, that's something I tell my clients, what if something slips through the cracks? I'm like, something's gonna, okay. But it's not like the kids died, the kids, you give them a good work ethic, right? And
the goal is we just have to keep them alive.
They're not going to always have you there. They're going to make it. They're going to learn how to do what they got to learn how to do. What you want to avoid is having everything slip through the cracks or having the most important things slip through the cracks. So yeah, I've got an article on my website about how my kids never learned to speak German. And Greg is fluent in German. And was teaching German and was translator and we lived abroad and kids don't know German. And no matter, it's one of my funny ones. And it's called, when you're the homeschooling husband, when your spouse helps teach, nicht. And it's
yes, they have good intentions, but it doesn't happen.
I wanted that so bad. It was and I speak a little German too. So it's there's no excuse for this, except it didn't happen because it just didn't work out. The schedules just didn't. What can I say? I can't undo it.
Yeah. So from this lofty position, we can say with confidence and pass that on to those who are starting. It didn't matter. It wasn't supposed to happen then. It's no big deal. Right?
And then you can look at things you did achieve and go, one day it occurred to me, okay, so they don't know a foreign language. All right. They muddled through in Latin in college or whatever. They do know a foreign language. Our kids, I figured it out. They know music because they all took some piano lessons and we've sung for years in this polyphonic choir. So we sing all this Renaissance music and it's that is not a small thing. That is huge. And it may not be something you go out and leverage and market and whatever, but it's totally enriching of your life. And it's you got to appreciate what you did do.
And music is an expression unlike anything else. You know what I mean? It's not, it is. And it's very mathematical, and it's got all these elements. The fact that you even did it as a family.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And we use it in mass. We go to the Latin mass and we sing there, and we've sung for lots of weddings and funerals, and like it's enriched other people too, and so it's something that is a gift that we were given, that we were able to give. We recently came back from Rome last October, and we sang in St. Mary Major for the 450th anniversary of the victory at Lepanto. And I never knew that was going to happen. That was just something that came along. We were gifted this trip by God, basically. And so we did it, but it wasn't anything I planned. And so God sometimes is just like, here, you're not going to do this thing that you think is really important, but you're going to do this other thing that I think is really important. Yeah.
Right. So would you say there's two things I've been hearing? One is, I think, a sense of openness to the moment, Susie. And the second is making memories. Oops.
Yes, absolutely. Because even now, when we get together, if we want to pull some polyphony out and sing it, like we do on my birthday. So I've been doing this thing where, like, when I turned 50, I was like, I threw myself a big birthday party, and it went all day and all night. And so I did it again last summer when I turned 55. I was like, I'm doing it again. And then I was like, you know what? I'm doing this every year. And I catered it. I made all the food, and I'm like, I'm having a big birthday party. I'm in July, so this is nice. You get good weather.
Yeah.
And all that's required was that we sing. So I had friends bring guitars and whatever, and we sang out on the back porch. And then we did pull out some polyphony just out of our heads, and we sang that. And it's like, that is my happy place, just, yeah. Right.
So discovering your family's happy place is again, a gift. But I think the other fact is that you've modeled that for your children in that same ways. You're saying your children now, you can see, are going back. And that was more important than checking off all the math lessons, getting German done. And yeah.
And some of them they'll tell you they don't know math. And I'm like, yeah, we did our math. I was never a math brain, but we did our math and we were diligent about it. And I, for one, learned math while teaching math. And I love math now, but especially because it's so much easier to teach than writing, which is my real specialty. Math is not my specialty, and it's way easier to teach. But anyway, so I love math because I finally get it after all these years, but they're going to learn it on their kids. I mean, that's what they're going to do. They're all going to homeschool. That's what they've told me, which is another kind of amazing. It's like, really? I mean, I didn't wreck your brain that badly. You really want to do this thing? Okay.
Right. Exactly. So I know that, when you're in the thick of it and you're having a hard day, do you have any kind of tips in terms of just being able to lighten up a little bit for yourself? Mom.
Well, I always take a walk every day, whether no matter what the weather, unless it's icy on the ground, and then you're going to find me all over the road. But I think going outside has saved me over the years. And I remember the kids were really little. Like I said, we had the one car, and maybe it was somewhere else. And I decided one year when they were very little that no matter what I had to do, no matter how long it took to pack them into their snow pants, and no matter how long we could stay out, even if it was only for 20 minutes, they were going out and I was going out. Yeah. And that really does, you need your daily dose of nature and sun and even wind. You got to go out of your four walls. Okay. Yeah. That's the first thing every day. And that's something I think everybody can do. And the other thing is to plan to go out with a friend that you really click with. I still do this. I was out last night with a friend. There are people, so many people, right? So do I. I know so many people. But there are a few that you can just talk to about anything. And the conversation just trips along. It flows along. You want to keep those friendships alive because people, and I remember this too, you get in the thick of homeschooling and you don't have time for anybody. And that's a big mistake. So you have to stop and say, okay, what do let me find some weeknight, we meet at we usually meet at Wegmans. I don't know if you know where that is. That's just a really nice grocery store that has a cafe in it. And it's a pretty easy place to sit. We just sit there and watch the people go by and talk about nothing, about whatever. And more importantly, laugh about everything. And these are women in my state in life, that understand all the things that I do. And so those things are really important. So make plans, have silly fun, have people over, play silly games, and write down the funny things that happen. Sometimes things that happen don't seem funny at the time.
Yes.
They're kind of awful.
Well, isn't it true? We always remember our family took this trip up to Vermont, and it is one of the most memorable trips that we ever took, because we live in Delaware, it's flat. My husband and I said they need to see mountains. We drove up there. It's about 10, 15 hours. Several kids threw up on the way. So it's miserable. We get up there. The key wasn't in the house. Then we get in the house. The heating wasn't in. And then we said, it starts raining. We're like, well, thank God it's not snowing. Then it started snowing, and we ended up in a motel somewhere near the Canadian border, but everybody remembers that trip, and we can laugh our hearts out over that trip.
That's what's in these books, by the way. And I forgot to mention the third one really quick. I'll just mention it. It's called Yes, God. And it's a funny book but it's got a serious, point, whereas the other ones are just funny books. But this one's about I interviewed all these priests and sisters about how they were raised by their parents to be in the world but not of it, and I just wanted to get parenting ideas from them. So, but anyway, those stories, like your trip, that's what's in here, because things just don't go the way we want them to go, and that's how life's not boring.
No, it is.
I remember I was one of the things I wrote down in one of the baby books was when we had Joey's the youngest, and Melanie, she's just above him, 2 years older. She was bored one day. The kids were all doing school. Joey was napping. She was bored. Now, this wasn't what I wanted her to do at the time, but she walked right up to his face while he was sleeping and she screamed, Joey can wake up now. Which he did. And, basically I need someone to play with. Get up.
At the time, it's the time. Because we know the rule in the house was always never wake a sleeping child, no matter what. That's the rule.
You're getting your homeschooling done while the babies are asleep because they're interfering with the rest of the time. So you don't want to mess with that.
Right. So I think again, so much of what you're saying is in terms of a lifestyle. And I think that's really what I wanted to, pull us together to really be able to give that encouragement to moms. And I wanted to mention too that, again, the blessings that, Susie is available for one-on-one coaching now.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Tell me, you said you love it. And so, yeah.
Well, I do love it. And this is why I'm an introvert and I like to talk to people one-on-one. And there are a lot of things I do in this career God plopped in my lap, which started out as a writing job, and then several other writing jobs, and then some books, and then more writing jobs. And that started a long time ago, like over 25 years ago when the kids were little. And anyway, but I did it while they were sleeping and then, for and I got it done, outside of the time that they needed me to do stuff with them. But anyway, that job led to now you have to give talks. And as an introvert, it was like, oh, great. Now I got to learn how to do this. So I did that for a while. And, you start to go, what's my sweet spot? My sweet spot is writing, not so much speaking, although I can do it. Mm-hmm. But I love interviews like this. I like the back and forth. But I love consulting because I've done it for years. People would look me up in the white pages. They'd read my articles and look me up. And then I would just talk to them about their stuff. So during COVID, some of my regular columns ended because the magazines closed. Yeah. And same thing after 9/11, actually, the magazines really took a hit.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, well, my arm's falling off anyway. I've really pain in my arm for writing for quarter century.
Yeah, the joys of getting older, Susie.
That and just too much with the mouse and I feel like I got arthritis, So I'm like, God is stop writing or your arm's gonna fall.
Nursing also.
Yeah. And so I'm like, maybe I'm meant to move on and I'll still do some writing, but not as much, not as heavily, and I'd like to really just. Then so many people started homeschooling. That's the thing. COVID made writing jobs freeze up, but they also made people enter homeschooling that never really were going to do it before. And so there's a whole generation of people. We're in one niche group of people who are weird enough to have homeschooled, right?
Right. Because we were more closer to the pioneers at that point.
Yes.
I was just telling my son the other day, and it was they were few and far between. And we were. I told my husband, I was like, I'm not homeschooling. Those people are in a cult. Are you trying to get me in a cult, honey? So I even had those ideas back then. But now it's mainstream. And you're right. Everybody who had a little curiosity got a taste of pandemic schooling. But now there's more and more people coming to homeschooling. And so grateful that you're going to be able to talk with them, Susie. So you're doing consulting now?
I am, and I'm still writing, but I do like consulting because if I okay, how do I sum up this career? It's okay, well, really, I'm a homeschooler. Okay, this is what I've spent my day-to-day years of raising children doing. It doesn't pay. Then again, I've saved a ton of money doing it, but it's still basically what I would call my career. And these other things are offshoots of it, like writing funny books about homeschooling or writing articles about it or writing articles about the saints or Catholic life. I've done a lot of great interviews with a lot of amazing Catholics, but building support groups. I've done that for years. I co-founded our support network here and local and co-founded our co-op and teach, the other kids. So I feel like homeschooling is my way of life. And I've done it with, our family, but also with other families, in conjunction, and traveled and met homeschoolers all over the place when I'm speaking. And so it's only natural that I would do this now, do consulting, because it's what am I here for? But to teach, not just to help people, help one family at a time to succeed. Because I really think someday, I hope, this will be seen, this movement of homeschooling will be seen as a very important movement culturally. At a time when the things that we relied on to support us fell through in so many ways, and they weren't there for us, or were working against us in many ways.
Yes.
And we had to build it.
Yeah. Homeschooling is definitely more natural than people realize. And very often we try to layer on aspects that are more that schoolese. And that's where we get this kind of, rocky road. And so I think the other element that I heard you speaking about too is a season in life. I love how you were true to yourself in the sense that, writing is something you did from a kid. So it doesn't mean mommy's life is put on hold. You actually brought that into your family by doing stories for the kids. Oh my gosh, that's such a precious gift. So we are, creative beings. So those gifts kind of it's beautiful, Susie.
Well, you're who you are. You're who you are, and you want to be your authentic self, and you want to give your kids your real self, and they are going to develop their way. But so consulting is part of my season of life too, because I am down to two kids. Down to two.
So good. So before we wrap things up, because I'm going to ask you one final question on there, How can people reach you, Susie? If they want to do consulting, but also if they want to get copies of your books, which I strongly recommend, just have a hard day, read a chapter in Susie's.
Yeah. I have a website, susielloyd.com.
Great.
And, it's funny, Paula, because you were telling me, or somebody was telling me that I should shrink the website and make it just about consulting. And I know that's how you do things in the marketing world, but marketing is not my sweet spot. I don't like it. And I decided I don't care. I'm a creator. That's it. Yep. So I decided to put my Catholic stuff back up. It's like, I've got all kinds of stuff on my website. I've got my consulting, my books, my Catholic articles, and my homeschooling articles, and even some speaking stuff. It's all there because this is who I am.
Yes, it's like your little calling card there. That's awesome. And it gives all the aspects of you. And that is a joy for people because they're at different stages. Like you said, those who may want the one-on-one consulting, but also just to hear your story. And I know that you also have some ideas for people to form groups, support groups.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's something in the Catholic homeschool community we're doing is we're going to try to get a directory up for people to find people locally. So I'm going to tap into you. And
absolutely. I always do that for my new homeschoolers. I always help them find local people. Yeah. And that's always number one. Mm-hmm. It's not what books do I get? It's meet the other homeschoolers. Make friends, form a network. They're going to be there for you. You're going to be there for them. That's what you need. Yeah. That's number one.
Yeah. So before, as I said, as we wrap this up and we talk about humor, and again, the gift of you naturally being a funny person and wanting to inject silliness into your life. Thank you. Because God has called us to enjoy, and laughter is one of those beautiful gifts he gives us. So any parting words in terms of how about when people get worried, the outside world comments on your choice to homeschool? Anything that you...
Well, the outside world is a little bit more friendly to homeschooling now than it was when we started, right? They just thought you were whacked back then. Most people are okay with it, except your relatives might not be. So some parting words about, let's just say your relatives, is you have to have some patience for this. Just keep doing what you're doing. And in a decade or so, you can wait. Someone on your relatives team will say, wow, I'm really impressed with how your kids turned out, because they'll say something to recognize that homeschooling was a good idea, because they will see, God willing, you're not doing it to get a pat on the back. I'm just saying it's going to happen. It's happened to me. It has happened to a lot of people I know where somebody stepped forward and said, I'm glad that you did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that has happened to me, and I've witnessed, and you say, it's just it isn't like something you're hoping to expect or the reward of doing it. Right. It is just it's the fact.
And so if someone's giving you a hard time,
remember,
that's probably going to change, especially if I don't think it happens if you go head toe to toe with them, and say, no, I'm doing the smart thing, the right thing. Then you'll fail at it. Just do your thing and let it just prove itself.
Yes. Be patient.
Yeah.
Over time. And no, people usually, it does come from a desire to want the best for you, but we all, of course, don't know because it isn't perfect. This world isn't. So, well, I wanted to thank you again, Susie. It was so much fun for me to have you here on the podcast. Please, we need to do this again. We got so many topics we can talk about. If anybody's interested in getting a hold of Susie Lloyd, again, susielloyd.com. We will have the links below this video on our podcast on all the channels that you can get podcasts, as well as on the Catholic Homeschool.online website. So I want to thank you. Thank you again, Susie. May God bless you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me. This was fun.
Great. God bless you. God bless everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Thank you, and have a blessed day.